We're back, people. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. They are not going to take us down. After termination and chaos, we have re-risen like a golden phoenix out of the flames of censorship to rise once again for Kitz Corner 2.0. And we will continue to fight the good fight. Hello, one and all. Welcome to Kitz Corner 2.0, or Kitz Corner Reborn, or Kitz Corner The New Birth. I don't know what we call it, but we're back on YouTube. After the original channel has been completely terminated off of the streaming service, we have reborn, we have re-risen in order to continue on the good fight. We continue to hopefully bring a voice to people, to be anti-war, to be anti-imperialism, to be anti-corruption, to be the voice of reason, to be the voice of understanding, and to grow and unite together on this journey of self-discovery, on this journey of finding out the truth, reading between the headlines, and figuring out what exactly is going on. We hope to continue on the good fight. So, thank you to everybody that has continued to be part of us. And like always, subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notified, and check out our other various platforms, because if we get censored off one, we're not going to be silenced altogether. They're not going to take us down. We're not going to take it. And speaking of not going to take it, that leads me to the story here of what's happening in Europe, because things are getting epic. Things are getting epic. We already know that there's an energy crisis happening there. We already know that people are struggling to make their basic needs met. And people in European nations, they are not going to take it. So, here's what Reuters is pointing out here, saying the rising costs, the rising energy prices could fuel social unrest across Europe this winter. That's what they're predicting. And it's already happening. It's already happening in September, because of the fact that European nations that are aligned with NATO, a lot of Western developed nations have decided to continue on this path of self-destruction by continuing to sanction Russia in hopes to guide Ukraine through this journey of epic war, and somehow have this delusion of Ukraine winning this battle against Russia and taking down the tyranny of Putin, which hasn't worked. It has not worked at all throughout this entire process. And what we're seeing out in the open is that these sanctions that are supposed to be crumbling the Russian economy is actually bolstering the Russian economy and affecting everybody else. We're seeing nations across the board, from European nations to even here in North America, being afflicted and being having that burden of not being able to, citizens not being able to survive the cost of living, because our economies have been bolstered and taken over to align with NATO to do this. And I still don't understand the exact point of this. I'm sure there's some business opportunity to be made off this. I don't know if these countries that are aligned with NATO, if they get a kickback off this. I don't know what the thing is, but all I know is that citizens are not taking this. Citizens are waking up to realize that enough is enough. I can't pay to heat my house, or pay groceries, or gas my car to go to work so I can pay for these things. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. And people are waking up to that. And like I said, it's even happening here in Canada. So the Toronto Star even points out, winter is coming, and the cost of heating your home could shoot up 30%, analysts warn. So there's a bleak warning. There's bleak warnings all over the place. And we showed you before how severe they're making this, to the point where they're saying you have to ration your electricity. You have to turn off your air conditioning. You have to do this. You have to, select certain appliances that you're allowed to use. The government's actually forcing people to cut off their heat at certain times of the day. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And they say natural gas prices have already been on the rise this summer, and cooler weather and EU sanctions against Russia mean there will be likely more price hikes to come. More to come. We've already seen energy prices soaring and continue to skyrocket even before the invasion of Russia. Even before this whole NATO-aligned U.S.-backed coup attempt to throw out Russia and all these sanctions and all this tyranny that they're doing in Eastern Europe to try to, use Ukraine as a prong. We've seen skyrocketing bills beforehand, but this is just getting worse. And they're saying that winter is coming, so be aware. Or should I do it the way of they do it on Game of Thrones? Winter's coming. That's Game of Thrones, right? I've never seen the show, so you can mock me all you want about that. I don't really care. But anyway, here's where this gets interesting, because people are fighting back on this. So people in Naples, Italy, are burning their energy bills. Things are not they're not staying still on this. They're not taking as is. They're not being compliant to this, because once people's needs of survival are not met, if they're not able to put a roof over their head and feed themselves, or be able to have clean water and be able to live a decent human life, that kind of spurs people off. That kind of spurs people off to the point that they're going to retaliate. And they're retaliating by the masses. So here's what's happening in Europe, and no joke, they're actually taking their energy bills and burning them in protest. Take a listen to this. Look at that. They're burning their bills, they're protesting, they're chanting, they're singing, they're cheering. They got people of all different groups coming together, uniting. I haven't seen this much fandom since, like, when they had soccer matches. But it goes to show you that when this really pisses people off. This is where you cross the line, where people, if they can't meet their basic needs, they are going to retaliate. People are going to retaliate when basic fundamental needs of citizens, regardless of who you are or who you represent, if your basic needs are not met, you're stepping up. You're not taking this line down. You're not having any of their crap. Because they've been told time and time again by their fucked up leaders that, oh, this is worth it. You have to self-sacrifice everything in order for this proxy war that doesn't even make sense. Like, nobody even knows exactly why we're doing this, why we're continuing to do this, what the money's going towards for. Like I said, we know it's some sort of business opportunity, because why would they continue on to do this? Why would Europe go along with this? Why would NATO-aligned nations take all their fundamental resources and push it towards one nation? There has to be some global empire of the war machine, the military-industrial complex, aligned together to have this big business opportunity, using Ukraine as a prong to go against Russia. There has to be some aligned business opportunity to that. And it's costing the lives of millions of people that are retaliating against this. So that's just in Italy. But here's what's happening in other parts of the European nations. So Fiorel Isabel says, protesters in France demand an exit from NATO and the removal of Macron. That's the president of France there. Among the chants were Macron get out, Macron destitution, and let's leave NATO and Frexit. France, Germany, Czech Republic are among the countries in Europe with mass protests against economic conditions, because they're also feeling the burden of making their needs met. That people can't afford to heat their homes. They're not able to pay the electric bills so they can light up their houses. And like I said, when you piss off citizens this much, there is going to be protests. And I wish there was the protest enthusiasm over here. I don't know if there's some sort of difference between North American culture and European culture. Maybe it's the psychology that Europeans are more collective than we are. I know we're very more uh, individual. We have this kind of individual ideal system that we care more about the individual than the I don't know what it is, but it's amazing to see people uniting together when it comes to stuff like this. And you should look at the amount of people. Look at the amount of people that are gathered together. And like I said, regardless of who you are, if you don't have your basic needs met as a citizen of that country, you're going to stand and fight the good fight. Like, this is uniting the entire country together to realize your leaders are not helping you, your nation that they're supposed to represent, and are doing this solely on the purpose of NATO, on the purpose of imperialism, on the purpose of neoliberalism, on the purpose of the global war empire. That does not give two rats' asses if you freeze yourself this winter. They're just telling you to take it, but they're not. And look at the amount of people. Look at that. Tens of millions of people marching down the street for this. I wish we had that enthusiasm here. Like, I've never seen this amount of people uniting together at once to fight the good fight. Like, even the Black Lives Matter, when the George Floyd protests were going around, I don't think there was this many people. I don't think it was that many people that attended the Black Lives Matter protests that are attending this one right here in France. Like, wow. Talk about fighting the good fight. It's incredible. And if anyone knows anything about history, you don't piss off the French. You don't piss off the French. Because if you know anything about history, well, look up Louis the 14th, or is it Louis the 14th or 15th? That anyway. My point is, it's the French Revolution. You get the point. Anyway, so that's what's happening over there. And here's also, this is in Prague. 70,000 people took the streets of Prague in mass protests against the EU and NATO. They demand neutrality in the war and action on energy prices. Sounds fairly reasonable. They want to end the war, end the sanctions, invest back home, meet the needs of their citizens, and make sure things are sustainable so that people can actually survive in said nations. Sounds reasonable. This is the future for all governments that act against the interests of their people. And look at the amount of people. Look at that. Like, this is like the entire country just getting out of their houses, getting out, and coming together to battle it out against the classes. Because we know this is class warfare. This has nothing to do with left versus right. This has nothing to do with liberal versus conservative or any political ideology. It has to do with the fact that the elitists, the ruling class, is using this as a business opportunity to enrich them and the corporate capital of warfare, but go against you and oppress you. That's what this is really about. And people have had enough of this. So take a look at this. That is incredible. That is incredible. And like I said, I've never seen this amount of people gather together in any protest in the last how many years? Like I said, like even, Black Lives Matter, even the March for Your Lives when the kids were protesting about school shootings. I don't think there was even that many people that attended that as much as they're doing here. Maybe it's because, energy prices affect everybody. Maybe it's because it's not a topic, it's not a topic that's divided among, political ideologies. Like it's a human thing. Like people need heating in their houses to keep warm. People need a source of food. People need clean water. They need clean air. It's not negotiable. It's not just a leftist ideology or a rightist ideology. Like, people are coming together on all forms, on all sides, to rally against this because they know it affects everybody. It affects the greater good of people. So that is incredible to witness there. And here's also something to point out too, because we showed you that 30% is getting increased here in Canada, and people are protesting in Europe about the increases of energy prices and whatnot. But this is where this gets interesting, because I don't know if this is solely based on the sanctions. Like, I know probably in Europe, it's probably more likely to be based on the sanctions because a lot of the natural gas and liquefied natural gas comes from Russia. So I understand that maybe the sanctions are impacted by the energy crisis is impacted by the sanctions. I can understand that. But why here in Canada? Why here in Canada? Well, here's something to point out about this. From energynow.com, saying that Enbridge, which is one of the major distributors of natural gas and oil and provides to residential and commercial buildings across Canada, reports $1.84 billion fourth quarter profits. That is up from $1.78 billion a year ago. That's something to point out. That's something to point out. And maybe they're taking advantage of the sanctions, taking advantage of the situation, just like how gas companies take advantage of wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, and a bunch of other nations to jack their prices, even though it doesn't affect their supply, even though it doesn't affect them personally or any of the distribution. They're going to jack the prices to manufacture the idea that this war, the situation that they've created, the manufactured consent of the war in Ukraine, is causing all this. When really they're using it as a scapegoat to price gouge you. That is insane. 1.78 billion from a year ago. I don't know what that is in percentage wise. Someone can do the math on that, because that takes time and energy. But that's crazy. That's crazy. $1.84 billion in the last quarter, and that's up from $1.78 billion just a year ago. And that's the largest distributor of gas and heating across Canada. And they're giving a stern warning about how it's going to shoot up 30%. And they're blaming this on, Putin. Somehow this is Russia's fault. Somehow this is the sanctions' fault. Somehow this is the sacrifice you have to make so that Ukrainians can taste the breeze of freedom. Well, here's how that's going out. Because I want to show you this too. Because everyone keeps telling me that the sanctions are necessary to take down the Russian economy. Who's saying that? Mostly the mainstream media. But here's where it's turning out. So, UK, for example, is putting the most sanctions on Russia, saying it's going to cripple their economy, it's going to take Putin down a few pegs. But here's the outcome of it. And they did this in this little chart here. So, price of food, it went up 10.5% in the UK. What's the price of food in Russia? It went down 11.3% in Russia. Potatoes up 18%, down 28% in Russia. Up 12% bananas in the UK. Bananas went down 14% in Russia. Cabbage went up 10%. Cabbage went down 33% in Russia. So do you see how this is affecting everybody? Do you see how the sanctions don't actually cripple that said nation? How this is all just a charade? This is all just a joke? And like I said, I don't know how this is benefiting people, how it's benefiting the 1%. There's got to be some sort of kickback for all these NATO countries and these countries to join NATO. I don't know what benefits they're getting off this, but this is insane. This is utterly insane that we're spending so much time, energy, and resources and money and finances to continue on these sanctions, and it's hurting ourselves. And here's the other thing. Down at the bottom, energy bills up 80% in the UK. What is it in Russia? Up 10%. So do you see the outcome? Do you see how the sanctions are biting us back in the ass? Just like most sanctions do. You understand how crazy this is, that this idea that somehow Putin is causing the inflation, Putin's causing all the crisis, it's Russia's fault that somehow, this is all happening. We're continuing to do this. We're continuing to manufacture this crisis time and time and time again. And we can easily stop this. Nations can easily stop what's happening right now and, invest that money back home so they can stop the inflation, stop the crisis, stop the rising cost of food. Actually care and meet the needs of the citizens that they're supposed to represent. But they're not doing that. They're not doing that. And that's why people are stepping up. They're burning their bills. They're meeting together. They're shutting down cities, shutting down main streets, and they want to exit out of NATO. They want to exit out of the war machine. They want to stop this chaos before it gets even worse. Because we have got warning after warning of how severe this is going to be. How severe this is going to be. And people are waking up to the fact and standing up because they don't want it to get even worse from here. And like I said, when you don't meet the needs of basic survival for your own citizens in said countries, they are going to rise up. And I hope they rise up. And I hope people get the message across so that it happens more often. And I wish this is happening in North America. I'm not seeing this in the United States. I'm not seeing this in Canada. People are just going along with the flow. I don't know what it is. But I'm glad to see it in Europe. I'm glad to see people are not taking this down, and we'll see where this goes. People power can rise up against tyranny, can rise against oligarchy, can rise against the machine of oppression against ordinary citizens. That's what real unity is right there.